In probably one last video. Probably. Uh, right now, I'm in the city that I get treatment in. I'm staying here. I've got a job lined up. I have a new set of treatments that I bought, so I'll be here for at least 6 more. But I want to be close to the treatment while I start a job and see how my body handles it. Because when you move around and you do things, these metals that are in me, like they they come out. So from when I was starting to exercise, I would get these reoccurring symptoms every time, and then I'd get treatment, and it would help out a lot. Like my symptoms would come back, and then I'd get treatment, and they'd be better. So I was going to go back to my old travel job. This and to fly back and forth and have to worry about like taking days off work, it was getting too complicated in theory. So now I'm just going to stay in the city that I get treatment in, and um, just get my treatment every 2 weeks or even every week if I need it, if it gets a little intense. Or it could go great and I'm fine. I don't know. We'll see. I'm a little nervous, but it's just going to be what it is. It's more me being in my own head, probably a little PTSD, just because it just keeps coming back over and over. So now I'm worried like it's going to come back. But I think I'm doing all right now. I think I'm to the point where I should be all right. Maybe I'll have some symptoms, but the fact that treatment's right down the street, and if it gets bad, I can just go. It helps me out physically and mentally. So that's where I'm at now. Doing a lot better. It's still once in a while I keep having these crazy relapses. If I get some sort of like I got a bacterial infection and it really messed me up for a few weeks. So I gotta treat it like I have an autoimmune disorder again, and just try not to get sick. Try not to, whatever, anything bad. Even if I get like injured, like if I bang my arm, my whole body like reacts. It's like my whole body's like, oh, something's wrong, and it just freaks out. So I get all my symptoms back. So I just have to be real careful. But I'm at the point where there's no point in sitting around and waiting to get better because I feel like I'm just at that point where I have to try. So here we are. And now Tiffany will go over her side of the story, um, in as much or as little detail. She did a lot of the paperwork and the hard part of it. That was
Oh,
the other side part. So
the other hard
now
part.
you will hear her story, her
Got it.
point of view.
So I have a couple of notebooks that I was keeping, and we had our calendar going with all the appointments and everything. So I was looking back to see how many appointments we had gone to and everything. So basically, I'm just going to give kind of like a rundown of the difficulties we faced with the medical appointments and trying to get people to believe us, and how many times we had to go back to the same doctors, and just like a play by play kind of. I had had surgery in June of 2022, and I was in Houston for like a month. And when we came back, Sean had been here alone, and that's when like was he was very, um I don't know the word for it, how you were feeling, like beside yourself, like you didn't know what to do, you didn't know what was going on. um it just seemed like really more of an emergency situation than we had thought of prior to that, because otherwise we would have probably taken you with us. But, I think being alone maybe made it a little bit worse for all that time.
Well, it was what made it worse was they put me on antidepressants
Oh,
while you guys
yeah.
were gone. They prescribed me antidepressants, and that just sped up the process. So that's what happened there.
Yeah. It was just so bad. I mean, he was, yeah, not good at all. So I was like, well, I guess ain't about me no more. So, okay. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Terrible time.
Uh, so when we came home in July, I think we started trying to get you into doctors, but I don't really have any notes until September. which I know is not the case. But I think between July and September, we were just trying to get you into places. Your new primary doctor, I mean, it was crazy. All the places we were trying to go. I think you went to the clinic. It was so you were having stomach issues, and I had been in and your eye blew up. Um, like something had happened, but then it was just the reaction to the anesthesia. We found out nobody like scratched you or anything. There was no like accident damage to the eye. And then in October, we went to the ER on the 2nd here in Brownsville, and they gave him a Valium while we were there. It didn't do anything. And then they gave him an inhaler to take home because he was having problems breathing. His, what did you call it? Like the uvula and the tonsils were all swollen and like droopy.
Mhm.
And so they're like, let's give you an inhaler. Did nothing. And they gave him 50 milligrams of hydroxyzine to sleep, and it did work. But he said he felt numb and he didn't snore or move. So like for a majority of these months, my job was just watching Sean sleep. Like I was on edge, not to diminish how Sean was doing or how Sean was feeling, but this is just kind of from my perspective and like
Well,
patients do help. Anyways, I digress. So so a few days after the emergency room visit, like they didn't get any testing was all normal. This whole time, testing was normal. And we went to his primary doctor after the emergency room visit to like follow up. And the doctor would not order any further testing for him without a diagnosis. But she did give us a referral to an ENT because of the swollen and drooping, I guess, sinus area. Because he would sleep on his side or sleep on his back or whatever, and the airway would close. So that was like my main concern, probably his too, but for sure my main concern, like he's gonna be asleep and then be asleep forever and just like not be able to breathe.
yeah.
So all the other things were an issue too, the pain and all of that. But for me, that was like life threatening. Like we need to get this figured out now. So a couple of days. So let me just say, I'm very thankful for my coworker Patrick because every single day I was on the phone with doctors. Like when I was not in class, I was on the phone calling doctors trying to get everything figured out. Like every day I had an alarm at 11 o'clock or like 11:15, like call Sean's doctors, call because they want to make you wait. I'm sure everybody knows, like weeks or months. We need an answer. Like we tried everything. Sean tried all these medications. We both wanted something to just work. Like
Mhm.
whatever. It's in my head. Give me antidepressants. It works. Fine. Like
Mhm.
whatever. Placebos, whatever. Like
Yep.
just something, please, like let us find something with relief.
And I was like, because they kept testing me for HIV.
Yeah.
And I was like, fine, if that's it, like whatever, man, like just figure it out. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, kind of a bad attitude. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, I'm suffering so bad that like I don't care what it is. It could be Ebola virus. I don't care. Like, just figure it out. Either I die or we figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So then a couple days later, I got him in real quick. We ended up going to the ENT, and they did do a nasal scope, and they said that was clean. I don't know what that means, like no lesions, I guess. And then we got a referral from the ENT for the MRI of the brain and the mandible. So they're just focusing on like, oh, because you had a space or something in your jaw, right? You had felt like a divot. And so the same day that ENT told us, well, first he told us, cut off your uvula.
Hmm.
He said, cut it off and then it won't be bothering you.
Hmm.
Shocking. And he said, well, go to this oral surgeon. Tell him I sent you. Like he's a friend of mine. And he can see you. Just go as a walk-in. So Some of these appointments were through insurance and some of these appointments were private paid, like we just paid. We didn't wait for the insurance to go through, and a lot of because you were on Medicaid, so that's a whole other. I feel like I want to help everyone who's on Medicaid because there's like no help for anyone who that I can tell. There's no. They say, well, you can't go to these doctors, but you can go to these other doctors, but you have to wait forever. And then sometimes they still don't take the insurance, and then they don't give you the option to private pay a lot of times. They say because they're going to cancel your insurance if you private pay.
Right.
Like, so okay, we have to figure all these things out. All the tests are coming back normal, so they don't want to give like further testing, it seemed like. So a lot of the labs we paid out of pocket too. We just went and got them ourselves. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm moving on. Anyway, so we went to the oral surgeon.
Yeah.
And he got an x-ray and they didn't find any bone loss. So you know what that is now though, don't you?
Well, I was losing like cartilage and like muscle mass. So like my I got the wrinkles. Like my face was just becoming more like skinnier. Like I was literally losing like I was getting like swollen, but like my muscle mass and all my fat was like in my face was like disappearing. So I guess we all have a little indentation here, and it was just so obvious for me. I've never felt it before, and I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, like, what, am I losing bone mass? Like, why can I feel my jaw so well now, and I couldn't feel it before? Yeah. So
So it felt urgent. Like everything felt urgent, right? Because he wasn't sleeping.
yeah.
He was in pain. Everything was magnified. So like any symptom we said, the doctor would be like, "Oh, let's try to treat that symptom." Instead of like, "Why are all these things connected? Why are they all happening, at the same time?"
Yeah.
But up to this point, like all the doctors were like blowing us off. They're like, "You're fine. Everything's fine. Tests are normal. There's nothing in the x-ray. What do you want me to do about it?" Kind of an attitude like, "Well, what do you think it is?" But not taking us seriously. So after that, I don't have any appointments for like another week. And that's when we ended up in the ER in Houston. And I didn't know where to go. I just looked up emergency rooms. And so we started at this one called St. Luke's. And it was like a smaller hospital, it looked like. And they did review the binder though. They were like actually trying to take things seriously. The binder. Do you have that?
Yeah, it's in my car underneath all my stuff in my trunk.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like everything that we got, I put in this binder. Like, because I had been a foster parent for a while, and we had a binder for each of the kids, so it was just automatic. Like, I need to keep everything so that we could show the doctors, and maybe somebody will give us answers. I was bringing the binder to my doctor's appointments, asking my doctors to look at it, and they did. So everybody, didn't really have any ideas up to that point. So that St. Luke's told us to go to Memorial Memorial Herman, I think. And for those of you who are not from Texas, like it's this huge medical system, I guess. And every doctor you can imagine, like you can find a specialist through this network, I guess, through all these different hospitals. They have a lot of different locations. And we waited for 13 hours that day to be seen. And granted, there were some emergencies that came in. And the reason why we were going to emergency rooms is because of Sean's insurance. Like, that was the only option. That was the only place we could go. Like, we couldn't just go to somebody out of network. We had to just try to get more tests done. And, when it got really bad, we're like, we just need to go.
Mhm.
And so a lot of the times we went to Houston because that's the closest kind of medical center that we have close to Brownsville. And my friend Charles let us stay there a lot of the time. And, I was really grateful for that. I didn't even I could barely function. So it was really nice to have somebody, that we knew and could kind of like talk to and, let us stay in his house. That was a big help. So we were there, they were like, "Well, why are you here?" The same question and all these ways. "Why are you here?" Okay. Well, they were like, "Why are you in an emergency room? What made it so bad that you had to come to an emergency room?" And we were like, Sean was driving." And he almost crashed. So we came here. Like, no, that didn't happen. But we had to tell him something emergency wise because they just weren't taking it seriously. Like this, we're here. We drove 6 hours, not just for fun. Like we're not just crazy going,
Yeah.
going out of our way to get no answers. Like, so they did do an eye ultrasound. I mean, they did do a few tests that were helpful to rule things out. And they didn't see any issues. Of course, we know now with the nerves behind the eye or anything like that with the vessels. And then they tested him for myasthenia gravis. They did a CT to check for a stroke because it was a stroke center. And then they referred us to a neurologist. They said they were going to do a referral. So it seemed like we were getting tests that were less common at starting at that point. It wasn't just like the 75, tests for blood cell count for red blood cell and white blood cell. It was like more rare tests
Yeah.
starting then anyways. Um yeah, I have a picture. I don't know if I sent it to you of you in the bed in the hallway at the hospital because they didn't have any rooms. And it was just like you were in so much pain. And, we were there. And it's like when you're waiting for that long, you're like, well, do we keep waiting or do we leave? Like, what do we do? And I would just keep going up to the desk, like, hey, we're still here. We've been here for a long time. Oh, yeah, we'll call you. Okay, I get it. So finally, they called us back and we got no answers. And then um we returned to Brownsville after that. I made some calls to try to get into the neurologist, but we couldn't get in right away. We had to wait until like January. So I'm like, okay, just give us the appointment in January. We're gonna go back home and try to figure some more stuff out. So we went and got an MRI. This was on October 20th, and you did have contrast that day. And that was for the brain. Yeah, that was the one for the brain, for the ENT that he requested. And then the primary doctor she called us, okay, for a follow up. Like her office called us. And then we went in and they were like, what are you here for? Why are you here? And we were like, well, you called us to come in. Like, we're
Yeah.
here. And they were like, well, what's wrong? Like, what's wrong now? Like, what the heck? So frustrating. And then so we told her everything that we did. We went to the, emergency room in Houston and stuff. And they were saying that because you had vague symptoms and all the tests are normal, that, you know, there was no further testing that could be done. And she prescribed you Zoloft. And I asked her if we could go over the MRI. Like I was asking, like, can you please do this test? Can you do this other test? We had like a list of tests we wanted. And she would say no. And we didn't know at that time we could get our own lab tests. So we were like in panic mode, like thinking like, well, we need a doctor to call in these tests. Like, what do we do? Like we were stuck. And then I asked her, can we go over the MRI results with you? And she said to drop them off. It's like, just drop them off in the front and we'll call you. But she never called. That was the last time you saw her.
Yeah.
At least from what I have on my paperwork. You may have gone like by yourself, maybe. And then the day after, you had another MRI
Double dose of more gadolinium.
a week apart, which to me seems kind of weird, but that's what I have in my notes, so I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know what that MRI was. That the spine MRI? Maybe. No, I think
Yeah.
that one was later.
Right.
Anyway, more stuff, right? So then we went to the ENT for the follow-up of the brain MRI, and we met with the nurse practitioner. Her name's Jessica De Ochoa, and she was fantastic. She really did. She tried to help us and give us like referrals and stuff like that. She actually listened to us, and she wasn't able to give us answers, but she was willing to, advocate for us for referrals. And that was a big thing for me because I was having a hard time getting them. And she went over the MRI with us. Sean had a small cyst in his sinus, but she said it wasn't like that big to be causing these issues. She did the nasal scope again, and she was like, "This is the." Did she do it that time?
I don't remember.
She said, well, she did it at one point. I think it was at that appointment, and she said it was like the most swollen she had ever seen.
Both of them said that.
Yeah. Well, I think she called him in. I don't know if it was that appointment or the other one. But anyway, she was looking. She was like, "Yeah, this is crazy."
Yeah.
So then she started ordering allergy tests and then C1 inhibitor, C2, like some autoimmune things, I think. And then the same day, we went to the GI doctor for a follow up of the colonoscopy. And then they ordered an ultrasound for your stomach. And they gave you like GERD medication, esomeprazole, but some other medications I don't know how to say. And then they ordered more blood work, like the normal blood work though. And then we had the ultrasound at the hospital for the GI. And then we get to November. That was all October. And there's probably things that like I didn't write down. And in the meantime, I'm calling every day to the neurologist trying to get you in. Like I was like, that's it. That's gonna be the answer. They're gonna find the answer. That they're the neurologist, like you think, oh yeah, they're definitely gonna have answers.
It seemed neurological, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
Except for the pain in my bones. That didn't make sense.
nothing did.
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
So then November 1st, okay, ENT for CT scan of the head and neck. Nothing really came out with your allergy test, just like minor allergies, no big deal. Inflamed turbinate, sinus infection. So then you took antibiotics for that. It didn't change. She thought it was angioderma. I don't really know what that is. I didn't look it up. It wasn't. And then she prescribed a couple of medications. That same day, we went to a GI appointment again. They went over the ultrasound results. Insignificant fatty liver is what it said. No
Yeah.
no gallstones.
Well, when this all started, I was 165 pounds, but I was stress eating because I was in so much pain. So I gained like probably 20, 30 pounds within a couple months. She's like, "Why are you getting fat?" I'm like, "Because everything I told you is happening and no one's doing anything. Like, I'm stress eating. Help me." I was like being brutally honest. They're like,
Yeah.
"No." Like, "What are you eating?" I'm like, "I just told you I'm eating fucking donuts or freaking, I'm eating donuts. Like, I'm stressed. Help. Let's get that weight taken care of." I'm like, "Oh my
Oh,
God.
it's
This
just
is not
because you're
going to
fat.
happen."
You know what? This is what they tell women when they go and they have problems, right? They're like, "Oh, you maybe go on a diet." No, but in the meantime, they're like they have real problems anyway.
Yeah.
So that's how we were being treated, and they were saying you had like overflow diarrhea. Like, yeah, you were having problems like intestinally, but they were just focusing on that problem instead of like what's causing it all. So then they referred you to an endocrinologist, and they did do tests for like more obscure things, I thought, for parasites, H. pylori, serology, strongyloid. I don't know how to say these things. Schistosoma. Going with that.
Some of those were starting to make sense. Like, oh, okay, like this kind of matches up. I've read, like, I started researching, like, okay, some of this matches up, but I didn't find it. That was
So
that was the
each time, huh?
that was the first point where it was like, oh, okay, this is like a possibility. Everything else
Yeah,
was just not, like, no, this isn't it. There's no way. There's no way. And this was like, oh, maybe, but it
yeah,
wasn't.
it could be. Every time we would get like further testing, because some doctors would actually do further testing, it was like a glimmer of hope, like maybe, and then it wasn't.
Yeah.
So they did give you a referral to an endocrinologist, and they suggested to us to go to an infectious disease specialist, and they requested a CT of the pelvis and the abdomen to see more than the ultrasound could show. And on the same day, this is all November 1st, these three appointments, we did get into the neurologist in Brownsville.
Oh,
It was bad. It was a bad experience. I just remember being in there and then you were answering his questions and he stopped you and started asking me, like if he didn't believe you.
Mhm.
I was like, so he ended up diagnosing you with fibromyalgia, which we used for the disability application. I was like, okay, maybe that at least will help us. And then he gave you Cymbalta and Lyrica. And then he did some other testing. I don't know what they were. ACHR, binding and blocking, modulating antibodies. So like some other testing.
Yeah.
And he ordered an MRI of the spine with contrast and without. And I had started to call because you thought at this point, like definitely heavy metals. Like the what you were researching, we were really starting to get more like we're eliminating all these things. It's something. And you kept saying like you feel like you have poison in you. So I'm like, okay, I don't have any experience with this. I called the poison control center. They told me that they only help when you're like emergency poisoned. So if someone ingests like bleach or whatever, some kind of poison, local poison, I guess, not injected. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they couldn't even tell me where to go. I was like, what do we do? Where do we go? Where do I take him? How do we get tested for this? I called every single lab in Texas, every
Yeah.
lab to try to find like more heavy metal tests. And we thought you had to get a hair test because the blood like replenishes. So we're thinking the blood test was not going to work because it had been so long since these symptoms had started. So I couldn't find anybody, no labs in the entire state that tested for more than like 4 or 5 heavy metals, and you had already been tested for those. But we didn't stop there. We kept going.
Yeah.
And you got another CT from the GI. And then on November 8th, we went and saw this functional practitioner in McAllen named Jennifer Perez. And she started testing for Epstein-Barr, MTHFR gene mutation, testosterone, estradiol, I don't know what that is, ferritin, micronutrients, adrenal stress, because you were not sweating at that point.
Right.
Okay,
But
so
yeah, not sweating at all.
and then PSA, DHEA, sulfate, like all kinds of stuff she was testing for. And she gave you hydrochlorothiazide, 25 milligrams dose. I don't know what that was.
Was that the water pill?
Maybe. Maybe.
I asked for that
It's hydro. That would make sense.
because I was so puffy and like I just felt like just try something. Like
Yeah.
let's try see if I can get rid of some of this liquid in me.
Yeah, everything was puffy. And then the next day on the 9th is when we was sent in the hair samples to Dr. Zeta for the heavy metal test. So at
Mm.
that point, I had found because Jenny had suggested try Amazon. I was like, what do you mean they have medical testing on Amazon? What? So yeah, we found the test, and I was in my notebook. I found the list of all the heavy metals that this test tested for, and I was trying to look for the test that had the most because we didn't know what it was. And then look at the test. Very list one
Yeah,
is gadolinium.
it was the last one on the test too. Like when it showed up.
Yeah. No clue what any of those. I mean, we know what they are, right? Aluminum and all that stuff, but like just let's test for as much stuff as we can. And it was like 120 bucks. Like compared to all the rest of the testings we had, it was fairly affordable.
Yeah.
And then my friend had suggested for us to go to Baylor Scott and White. I had not heard of that system before, the medical facilities. So we went to the clinic in Austin and we had to pay out of pocket. And that's where they started telling us, like, we're really not supposed to do this. if you have insurance already.
Yeah.
So, but they did it anyways. Anyway, and they gave us a referral to a muscular neurologist. Is that what it's called? Neuromuscular specialist, maybe,
Yeah.
in Dallas. And he suggested we try to find a toxicologist. There are none that I know of. There are no toxicologists. He said he knew somebody a long time ago and they had retired. But
Yeah.
besides that, he couldn't find anyone for us. And then he gave you Zolpidem, which is a sleeping pill. So like, okay, at least if we can get this insomnia, under control, then maybe some symptoms will start to subside, but
Yeah.
it didn't work. No medications were working.
Well,
Or if they worked, they made you feel worse afterwards.
yeah. Making my nightmares worse.
And we lived a nightmare too. So,
Yeah.
and that was when we found out that the Mayo Clinic had denied your case the first time. Is
Mhm.
that was I had just sent in it was for Arizona, I think. And we had just sent in the records and they didn't interview or anything for the first one. They just denied it.
Yeah.
That was before we had the results of the heavy metal test. So we had just sent in the CT and the MRI and hoping and the symptoms, and that was it. And then what I found out from the Mayo Clinic, which was ridiculous, and I need to go on a mini rant because going back through all of this stuff, it was so frustrating. They don't accept insurance, or they didn't accept his insurance. I don't know, but I just put does not accept insurance. And then just to go there, pre-service deposit was $5,000. And then the services are taken from that deposit, and then they can still decline services when you get there. So, like, do they keep that money? Do they give it back, the money that they don't use?
Mhm.
Do they like overbill you? Like, I mean, it was at that point we didn't know it was denied. We were just getting information. There was no room in Florida. Arizona was limited. And I mean, it was, I don't know. For me, the Mayo Clinic has a very strong reputation. But once we started actually trying to get in for something that we just needed help with, we just needed a diagnosis, they didn't help us at all. They didn't want to help us at all. And I get that there's probably like a lot of cases.
Oh, I'm sure.
Um, so, I'm not that bitter, but I just couldn't believe that they wanted a pre-service deposit of $5,000. Like, this is the Mayo Clinic is only for people who have money. Like, anyway, moving on. So then on the 12th, we got the blood work for the functional practitioner, all the like H. pylori and stuff, and all of that had come back negative. Nothing was showing any promise of a diagnosis. And on the 18th, we had a follow up with the ENT with Jessica, and she was trying to order a sleep study. And then we couldn't get into a sleep study either because of your insurance or because the symptoms were not what they were looking for. Like they wanted to just give you a sleep monitor instead of for you to go and do an
Right.
overnight sleep test. And we were like, well, we'll pay whatever, like just pay out of pocket, and they wouldn't let us. So we didn't get to do a sleep study.
I wanted them to look at me while I was sleeping. Like I wanted people to see what happened to me because I kept trying to show the doctors videos of me sleeping, and they just would like look at it and like say okay and like look away. It was like they weren't taking it serious. I was like, oh my god, like look
Yeah.
at this. So I wanted those sleep study doctors to see me like twitching out of my sleep and snorting and like just not being able to fall asleep, but that didn't
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. So then on the 21st of November is when we got the heavy metal test results. And
Yeah.
it showed the super high gadolinium levels. I mean, it was off the test paper. Like it went all the way
Yeah.
to the end of the results. And then so we researched gadolinium. What is it? Sean did a lot of research. I found the Facebook group page, something living with gadolinium or something like that.
Yeah.
MRI contrast. So you get gadolinium poisoning from MRI contrast. And some people can process it out and some people can't. or like it affects some people and it doesn't affect other people, but like it stays in our body forever. So through the group, through the research, through all that, we were like, okay, he needs chelation. So we found a wellness center near Houston, and we got a video consult in a couple weeks after that. On December 1st, you had a psych appointment, and they were just trying to give you meds also.
Yeah.
That didn't work. Did you even try those meds? They were really strong.
No. Yeah,
Because
no.
we knew we had like more direction at that point. We had an answer. And who gave it to us? Ourselves.
Yeah, I may have tried it if we didn't have like some sort of answer.
Yeah.
And who knows what would have happened after that? If the antidepressants messed me up that much, who knows what those would have done?
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
probably, I
So
would have might have been that might have been it.
I
My
know.
brain was already barely holding on. Who knows what that shit would have done to me?
Yeah. But like all these, there's a few more appointments that I'm going to go through, but all of these appointments to say, like, we tried, we tried other things. We
Yeah.
tried to go like the traditional medical route. You tried antibiotics, you tried antidepressants, you tried, gastritis medications.
Yep.
We tried everything. Like it wasn't like we were saying, no, these doctors are crazy. They don't know what they're talking about. We just wanted something that would work, and nothing was working.
Yeah.
Nothing was even helping a little bit.
Nope.
So we weren't going to keep trying this medications. Like we didn't want medications, and that's the thing. Some patients just want to get more meds, right? But we were asking to not get meds. We want an answer. And they were like, well, your answer is the meds.
Yeah. Pretty
Try
much.
the meds.
Yeah.
And baby, you'll get an answer. So anyway, and then December 2nd, you went to a rheumatologist, and they tested you for lupus, connective tissue disorder, muscle degeneration. And then I sent the labs to the wellness center that day. Okay, so we had to send labs first. But that was when they started to test you for more autoimmune stuff, markers.
Yeah.
And then December 7th, we had the video consultation with the wellness center who does chelations near Houston. And then we switched primary doctors because that doctor didn't even want to go over the MRI with us.
Well,
So,
she was done with me.
yeah. And I understand, like, but she was getting very defensive. Like, how dare you question, when I'm trying to diagnose here? Well, I'm going to keep questioning you, ma'am. And I guess she didn't want to see us after that. So we switched primary care doctors. That doctor sent in a referral to the Mayo Clinic, and we sent the heavy metal test in that time. So that was to the one in Minnesota, I think, because the other one had been Arizona. So we were trying again, still trying, because we had a thought like maybe it's gadolinium, right? But we didn't know for sure. We just had that one hair test, and then on the 12th we went to Houston again. And that was because you were going to get your chelation treatment. So we went there, and you had your neurologist appointment on December 12th. I do not know how I got you into these places. I don't know. I just called every day. I was the most annoying patient's sister.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm his sister. Who? His sister. Oh, okay, I'd call back. Hi, I'm calling about Sean Carlin. Oh, this is his sister? Yes, yes, ma'am. This is his sister. I mean,
Yep.
every day, nonstop, relentlessly. And I'm not saying it to like, toot my own horn, but just to show like if we didn't do that,
Yeah.
I don't know what would have happened. Like, I don't know where we would be. Probably not here right this moment. Because we just needed answers. So anyways, we went to a neurologist, and this was through the Memorial Hermann medical system,
Yeah.
and no answers from him either. But he did do like a pretty thorough neurological exam, more thorough than the one here in Brownsville.
Yeah.
Had you do a lot more like movements. And so it wasn't really neurological. He did refer us to a neuromuscular specialist. So then that was the next appointment we were waiting on. That was like the big one.
Yeah.
We thought at that point. Okay, so then the 13th, you had your first chelation with EDTA and potassium. So there's two different kinds of chelations. I don't know if there's more, but that I know EDTA and DTPA. And that DTPA is better for gadolinium poisoning. This is coming from me. I have no experience with this. So there, I could be wrong.
Oh, you're right.
Okay. So then I kept calling the UT Southwestern Toxicology Center, and they were basically blowing us off. Like, oh, well, the doctors are going to review your case. And I was asking, like, is this where we go? Like, where do we go? Can
Yeah.
we go here? At that point, I was not telling people you had insurance. I was just saying you were not insured and we will private pay everything because they don't want to take Medicaid.
Right.
So I'm like, we'll pay. I'll give you my credit card right now. And no, they didn't want to take us. So then the 14th, the next day, I called an infectious disease doctor near Houston and we were able to get in. And it was like a weird, it was kind of like it was a medical spa and infectious disease doctor in the
Oh,
same
yeah.
place. So that
Yeah.
was a little bit off-putting. Like, is this like an infectious disease? Like infectious disease to me is pretty serious, but
Yeah. People
it
getting
was a
Botox
doctor.
next door.
Yeah, yeah. We went into a room that still had the stuff from the Botox
Yeah.
from before us. Anyway,
It's crazy.
so he that was when we first heard, that it might be MS. That his symptoms from before maybe were MS, and that he didn't have lesions. So still, like, wasn't really explaining what was happening now. And so he tested you for STO, tick-borne panel, BCX1, I don't know what all these meant, ESR, CRP, RTC, basically just like every infectious disease
Yeah.
that he could think of. Okay, and then those were the codes. But then when we went back for the follow-up, which was like 9 days later, you were negative for Sjogren's. No, sorry. This was the rheumatologist. So many appointments, I get confused. So in the rheumatologist, you were negative for, do you say Sjogren's? Is that how you say it?
Shorgans. Yeah, I think one of
Sjogren's,
those.
maybe? I spelled it
Yeah.
wrong.
No, you might be right.
Hashimoto, rheumatoid, connective tissue disorder, and vasculitis. Negative for everything. Everything was negative. And then the 29th of December, you went back for your second EDTA chelation. And then you had an ozone IV therapy. And then we tried to get into a clinic that had DTPA in Houston because the EDTA wasn't working. Like it was making you feel worse, or like it wasn't. Can you explain that a little bit, like what it does?
It's just not strong enough. It's not strong enough for gadolinium specifically. I think it's good for like lead and a couple other of the other ones, but for gadolinium, from what I understand, it grabs it and it gets it, but it kind of just leaves it in your body because it's not strong enough of a bond to like get a lot out. I'm sure it gets a little bit out, but like I would just get mass symptoms for like a week and it'd just be really bad. And then it would kind of settle, but the settle was still like where I was at, borderline, and it was terrible. But it was at that point I didn't care. Like I was like, well, do something, keep
Yeah,
going. I'll
yeah.
take the pain, like whatever. Just keep doing things.
And I think through maybe like the Facebook group, you were finding out that DTPA was better. Like you were starting to learn more
Yeah.
about it.
At that point, it was yeah. We knew, or I knew. I don't know if we talked about it, but I knew that DTPA was the answer. But I was like, it was almost the end of the rope, and I was like, just do the EDTA, like do something.
Yeah,
But the people were right. It's like EDTA is just going to mess you up. DTPA is the answer, and they were right. But I was just at the end. I was like, do
yeah,
it.
yeah. So you have the experience that you did try EDTA.
Yeah,
So
and I was real bad. So I tell
yeah,
people don't, for the group, just don't do it.
yeah,
If you're real
it's
bad, don't even try it.
yeah. And to go through all of that, and then you had maybe three treatments I have here, but I think you did more because I had to come back to Brownsville, and Mom and Robert went to Houston, our stepdad and our mom, and they were a huge help, letting me get back to work and go to our Christmas concert and do all of these things, and Sean not be alone because we rented an Airbnb for a month or 2 months, I think just a month. in Houston. And so the clinic that we tried to get into for the DTPA in Houston denied you because of your fillings, and that because Sean has fillings, they don't want to do this strong chelation treatment because it's going to make his teeth fall out or something. Like it's going to loosen the fillings. Do you feel that? Because you've had a lot of DTPA now.
No, but it's possible that it is chelating some of the mercury out of my teeth because you do have nerves and blood vessels running through it. So it is possible that it's also taking some of that. But I don't. I'm gonna get those out eventually, but I couldn't tell either way. Like I don't know what's what still. So maybe
Yeah.
some of that mercury is in my body now, and it's messing me up a little bit. But it's just too hard to tell because so much. I still have a lot of symptoms. They're just manageable now compared to whatever that was before that nightmare.
And that's
So
when we were learning about Dr. Richard Samelka, who used to be a radiologist or is still a radiologist, and he what you had a consultation, email consultation with him or something, and he was saying like just get the chelation, and then was that him? Get the
uh,
chelation and then take care of your fillings later,
yeah,
because they
well,
wanted
I
you to
don't.
get all your fillings out before you did this.
Yeah, that's it. I don't remember if it. I don't remember if he said that
Uh-huh.
specifically.
But we were just trying to get as many opinions and as much information as we could.
Yeah.
And then, so I was kind of relieved though with that clinic because the initial consultation just to have an initial visit was $3,000. So they were kind to like let us know, we're not going to be able to treat you. So you don't have to pay this initial visit
Yeah.
fee. So that was, I thought, thoughtful of our situation.
Yeah. All the shittiness we got, the least shitty was nice. Thanks for being not too shitty,
Yeah. Yeah.
even though you're very expensive and it's going to bankrupt us some more.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
So then the same day we found out that we couldn't get the DTPA in Houston, and I was like ready to move there. Like we were making plans. My husband Dave had already called his company he was working for. They have a location in Houston. Like we were ready to leave.
Yeah.
And then we found out, no, you can't get in there. So we're like, okay, well, calm down. And then the same day we went to the infectious disease doctor and he told us all the tests were negative and recommended a muscle and a bone biopsy. He thought that was the only way we were going to get answers. And we didn't do that. So, and then Sean got EDTA chelation again. They went in a hyperbaric chamber, started doing that. And then on the 18th, you ended up in the ER with chest pain. And you couldn't sleep. You had horrible, just terrible chest pain.
Yep.
And they gave you IVs. And I think I remember you had like Toradol or something IV.
Toradol, and then I would low potassium, so they gave me
Mhm.
like 3 potassium shots.
I wasn't there for that. Our mom was there. My mom.
Yeah. I tried. I waited for like a day and a half. I was like, I'll just muscle through this. I don't want to go to the ER because I don't know what that's going to turn into. And it never gave up. It just kept going. So,
Yeah.
but who knows? I mean, that was stupid on me. But at that point, I was so scared to go to any doctor or ER. I think that could have killed me if I didn't go eventually because it was painful. It was real painful, and it showed up like a heart attack on the EKG. They're like, "Oh yeah, you might be having a mini heart attack or something here." And it was just getting worse. And I was like, "Oh, I can make it," and it just didn't stop.
And then you think it was the heavy metals moving, or now?
Well, I had low potassium, so the EDTA may have like thrown off my
Mhm.
minerals. I was doing a sauna that could have also contributed because I know
Yeah.
you lose minerals that way too. So, and plus whatever I was eating, I don't even remember what I was eating at the time. So it could have been any of that or all of it. Who knows?
You were eating like meat because I wasn't there.
Oh
So
yeah,
you were
yeah,
eating, Robert was cooking like his
yeah,
good
yeah.
food for you.
I was like, I was checking out. That was the time I was like, yeah, like if this doesn't work, like I'm. So I was
Yeah.
like, why don't you make me some steaks every night, Robert?
My God,
I want to
bless
eat
you.
some real good food before I go. And I mean, that could have contributed. Maybe I was eating too much red meat at the time. Like
Yeah.
while it was all going on, a lot of iron. Maybe that like depletes your potassium or something. But whatever, I didn't care. I was like,
Yeah.
whatever.
There came a point where we were just like, okay, maybe we're not going to get answers. Maybe
Yeah,
we're not going to know what these things are, these symptoms, but
yeah,
we just need a treatment. Like we just need it just needs to get better.
right.
So, and then that same day that you went to the ER, we found out that we found the doctor in Arizona through the Facebook page,
Yeah,
and then that they agreed to see you. So then we started making our plan to move you to Arizona.
yeah.
And that's all she wrote. That's all I wrote. Cuz
Mhm.
after that, I just dropped you off pretty much.
Yeah,
And we were really fortunate to get a lot of help.
yep.
And it worked. I don't know how quickly it started working for you, but
Well, the first treatment, I got like a tiny bit of relief cognitively. Like I could think a little clearer, and I'm like, holy shit, this like it worked. Like that was it. That was like if
yeah.
that treatment didn't work, or like the first few, that was it. I was done.
Yeah.
And that very first treatment, it I got a little bit of relief, and I was immediately like, okay, this is gonna work. Like it was complete 180. I was dead, and then I was alive.
Yeah.
Like I was a dead man walking. It was over. So
And
yeah,
at that point we thought, this is it. This is like the last chance. This is the last, we don't have any more ideas
yeah,
after this. Like, if
no,
this doesn't work, I don't know what we're gonna do. So I drove him by myself because everybody was working or whatever
yeah.
to Arizona. And so I drove the whole way. It was beautiful. And I'm driving and Sean's like laying in the back. Like I
Yeah.
put the seats down, right? And he's like laying down flat and in my Prius. And I'm like, Sean, look, Sean. I kept telling him, look
Yeah,
at the mountains. Look. Oh my gosh, look, because we had both never driven through mountains like that before.
yeah,
And so here I am on this road trip, this last final road trip in my mind with my brother.
yeah.
And he's like, I don't feel good. Why
Well,
are you making me look?
the EDTA really made my bone pain worse. So like I couldn't even move my neck at that point. Like I was literally like this. It was so painful. And you're like,
Yeah.
look, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, shut up. I
And
know
I
you're
kept
having a good
taking
time up there.
it was beautiful. I'm just like,
Yeah,
look at these things before you die. Like that's what I
right.
was thinking. Like, this is
Yeah,
our last hurrah. Can we please like enjoy nature?
yep.
Have this one memory.
That was gonna be your last time seeing your Prius.
Yeah. Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a whole other. So
yeah,
that I kept taking Snapchats because I just like to. I like to have those like Snapchat memories. And I have like
yeah.
20 friends on Snapchat. Like it's not that much. He's like,
Mhm.
why are you taking Snapchats? Who needs to know where we are? Who's real like paranoid, agitated.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And I'm like, I'm documenting your death march.
Well, I was so fed up with people telling me like what I had and what I didn't have, and I was to relax or whatever, that I didn't want anybody to know. I'm like, I don't even want my friends to know because like who's gonna believe this? This is insane. I don't even believe it. Like I could still understand the words coming out of my mouth, and I was like, yeah, nobody's gonna believe this, so I didn't want anyone to know. So I was like, Tiffany, stop. I was just I was irritable and
I'm like
paranoid for
secretly
sure.
recording the mountains.
Yeah, paranoid, all the above. It was
Yeah.
terrible.
And we went to Roswell. We went all the way out of the way
Yeah,
to Roswell just to see, like, just to go.
yeah. Bit of a letdown.
Sean's really into that. Yeah.
I love it, but yeah, it was like, oh, this is it. Oh man. And I'm reading in about it as we're driving. I was like trying to read it, and it's like, oh yeah, it happened like not even close to there. I'm like, oh, like it was like miles and miles away. It just happened
It
to be the
was a
closest
trip.
town.
It
And
was
I'm
a
like,
trip,
oh,
that's for sure.
the lore.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it ended up giving us a really difficult drive from Roswell down to New Mexico. So
Yeah.
it's okay. I mean, we survived. We all survived. But
Yeah.
for me, like, going through all of that, of course, you were the one, right, going through all of it, but for me, like, seeing you like that every day, getting nowhere with the doctors,
Yep.
you were sleeping in our room in case you, like, died,
Right.
so that I would know,
Yeah.
or, like, if you weren't breathing, I could, like, do
Right.
CPR or something, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was so consuming,
I
and
bet.
I mean, I know that people take care of their family all the time, and I just know that was like a short little glimpse of how it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, I went on anxiety meds. Like I
I
had
remember.
to, I had to because I started getting to a point where I couldn't like figure out the next step to get a task done, which is not
Right.
me.
Right.
Like I already know 1,000 steps for whatever I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What do I do now? I mean, all of my energy, everything was just gone." So my therapist was like, "Try a medication." I was like, "You good idea." At this point, I'm gonna
Yeah.
do it.
You remember I remember this when you were on your meds, and I was like, "Yeah, you're on something." And we were in the car, and I'm like, "Oh, did you forget to brush your teeth?" And you're like, "Oh, yeah." You're like,
Oh.
"Wait, I did," because you were like, "Those are some strong meds."
Yeah,
And I
at
don't I
first
don't
I took
blame
a
you.
whole pill.
Yeah, I don't blame you. But I remember being like, "Did you forget to brush your teeth?" You're like, "Oh, yeah." Like, you felt so good. You're like, "Oh, yeah, I remember."
Yeah, then I could function.
"Oh, your breast stinks." I was like, "Oh, man. I'm in so much pain. Your breast stinks, man."
Maybe brush your teeth.
Yeah.
And then
It's
I
like,
still think I didn't. I was like, "Oh, we were going to a doctor's appointment or something. Let me get
yeah,
some
it didn't
gum."
matter. I was just like, "Hey, I don't wanna be mean."
Yeah.
Your breast
Well,
stinks.
I'm glad you told me.
Yeah.
But I was taking a full pill, and then later
Yeah.
I went to just half a pill. But that was the lowest dose. It was what do I take? I still take it sometimes. Buspirone. That's what I
Mhm.
take. Buspirone. Anyway, so like I still needed to be reminded to take care of myself while I was, taking care of things for you.
Yep.
And it's not like I was taking care of you physically, because what could we do? Like,
Yeah,
you
right.
still had like body functions, like you could take care of all of that.
Right.
But it was just the frustrations of the medical. And if I wasn't there, someone wasn't there to do that, like you wouldn't have done it. Like
I
there's no
couldn't. Yeah.
way you would have been
No.
able to.
No way.
And all these people that don't have somebody helping them,
Right.
so disheartening
Insane.
and frustrating.
Yeah. They're probably yeah, it's a nightmare. I was extremely lucky that it happened while I was with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy because you were just willing to, like, listen and be like, "Oh god." Listening all every day, listening to what I'm saying, like a new symptom. "Tiffany, look at this. Oh god, Tiffany, look at that." And then having to do all your searches. And we were talking the one day and we are like, uh, if it had been you that got poisoned, you would have went on all the pills and I wouldn't have been organized enough, so you would have been dead. Like, it wouldn't have worked
Yeah.
because you're the organized one and I'm the
Okay.
one that can handle the pain and not pop on the pills or whatever and be like,
Yeah.
"Fuck it, give me all the pills. I can't handle this."
Yeah. I would have made
And
them put me on morphine immediately.
right, and I'm nowhere near as organized as you, so I would have been like, "Please let me in." They're like, "No." I'm like, "Okay." Yeah,
Oh, can't get you into
Tiffany,
the neurologist.
they won't let us in.
Oh, what
Yeah,
do we do?
yeah. So, yeah,
It's horrible. But we
mhm,
were so lucky also to have a lot of family support, because
yeah,
even if they didn't completely believe us, which they never told us. But even some family members were like, "So what was it? What really was it?" No, that's what
right,
it was, the gadolinium. Well, we don't know. It's so obscure. But they would still listen. They would help us.
yeah,
And our dad and stepmom would give us money all the time to help us pay for these things out of pocket. Our aunt, um, Ina and Uncle Jim, like we just had a lot of help
yeah,
from all these different people throughout
yeah.
those 2 years. It's been
Oh,
two
yeah.
years.
Time's not real. It's crazy. I can't believe it. It's like a dream. It's like it didn't happen because it was so excruciatingly long, yet so fast. I can't. It's indescribable.
Yeah.
So my entire view on the world is different now because it's like, did that even happen? That's so crazy. It was like I read a book, and now I'm like okay enough to be like, oh, did that really happen? Because that was
Yeah.
crazy. That was fucking.
Yeah. It's like a living nightmare.
But
Like it's
yeah,
just looking out.
I gotta help people when I'm better and got my finances in order, and I'm finally feeling like I feel good now. But when I'm like comfortable, it's been like a few months, and I'm symptom free. I'll be helping people because I have to. I got to pay it forward. I had a lucky run to have you there. I'd be dead without you, and to have the family support that like some of them have like one person and they're lucky. Like I had you and Dave. And Dave, I forget about to thank Dave too. He was there giving me massages every day. Dave was
Oh
great.
yeah.
Fantastic. And then like having the family also support us financially and emotionally from afar. Like I am one of the luckiest people on that group of these poison people that have there's thousands of them. Almost I think it's almost at 10,000 people and growing. So I'm insanely lucky. So I have to eventually I'm gonna help people with the autoimmune disorders. The food I've been posting and stuff like healing through food is the real deal. It's all about eating real food and focusing on nutrient density and not eating this crappy gluten-free bread and like vitamin added foods. It's like, no, just eat the real food, man. Stop with this synthetic crap. I don't care if who says what's good. It's like real food, man. Real food. And then that with the autoimmune disorders and then getting chelation because there's a lot of misinformation about this chelation. Like, oh, it just makes you worse. It's like, sure, maybe, but when you're real bad, from what I understand and how the people I know and me, it's like it's the only way. You can do a few other things, but you need to do chelation. And hopefully I'll be able to start some sort of business or nonprofit, not for profit, to help these people like I got the help. And I wouldn't be here without you and then all the other support. So
Yeah, and some people don't have that support at all. And
a
so
lot of
I want to help you too once you get that started because trying to navigate the medical community is ridiculous. Like,
yeah,
but
it's rare,
there's
but
a code now you found
yeah, they finally
for
put a code.
like a medical code for
Yeah, they put out.
diagnosis.
Yeah, I got my disability got declined because they wanted to do me to see their doctors and see how I've progressed or whatever or how I'm feeling. And now I'm feeling good, and it's like, well, yeah, you're not poison anymore. I'm like, oh, like
Yeah.
yeah, I am, but I'm not going to sit here and lie about my symptoms because that's just not the person I am. I'm not going to exaggerate stuff just for the sake of this money. It's like you should have helped me when I needed the help,
Yeah.
you bastards. And now I'm swimming in debt, making this move earlier than I wanted to. I think I'm ready, but it's a little earlier than I wanted to. But it's like, well, I have no choice. Like the money's really like I'm catching up to the debt. The debt's catching up to me. So they've given me no choice, and I feel like I've been let down big time by the system. I know it's rare and I know it's crazy, but I've been let down big time by the thing I've paid into my whole life and it's supposed to be helping us, you know.
Yeah.
But I'll be all right. It's I've got a great view on life and attitude. It's like I could be homeless and I'll be fine. Like it'll never get as bad as that unless I get injected with that stuff again. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm not worried about any of that. It'll be fine. It'll all be fine. But I still got to vent sometimes, Still got
Yeah.
still got to let out the anger.
Well,
But
going through all of this and writing it down and looking through all my notes and everything in the calendar, I mean, I was just re mad.
yeah,
I just went back to that place we were in and of despair and like no answers and getting worse. Wasn't like you were getting a little bit better. Like every day you were getting worse. And nobody wanted to find out why. They just wanted to throw medication.
yeah, let down by the doctors too. No, like not one of them. Well, a few of them did, but like we're like, oh, okay, like this sounds like I hear your story. This sounds crazy. Let me take a little bit extra time out of my day to like do something for you. It's like no one did,
Yeah.
and I begged them, and they thought I was crazy, and then I calmed down. They're like, well, now you don't seem as bad, and I'm like, oh. But
Yeah.
overall, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. Like like you hear those people like you survive cancer, you survive these terrible things. It's like it was fantastic. The other side of it's fantastic, and I'll also help people with chronic and insane things because you feel hopeless, and then you get to the end of it, and either you die and you go on, or you survive, and hopefully you can turn your attitude the right way. Because I know people can go down a dark hole after that, and I don't blame them, honestly. I don't think they're any worse than anyone else or any better. It's just, what do you do? But if you can get your attitude adjusted right afterwards, it's life is so much better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm glad you're doing better.
Having a good day today. Oh, see, you never know. Once I'm working more, we'll see how my body holds up.
Yeah.
Because I have bad weeks, and I'm like, oh, all those things I just said, I don't care. It's just the reality of it. The
You're just
duality of
living
it.
with it now.
Yeah.
Well, that's my experience with this, and it's not over, but
Right.
we're not in the thick of it anymore.
Right.
We have an answer.
Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's mentally, it's probably equally as hard for you mentally as it was for me physically. And it's hard to compare those two, but I'm sure it was probably equal. The stress of it was equal to the
Yeah.
physical anguish of it. And then
A
this
lot.
throw this video on the page, and people can reach out to me. Yeah, I don't know. It's up to you if you want people to reach out to you, because you might get a lot, but
Yeah, I'm okay. I
you
feel
just
like I have a lot of answers.
yeah. And hopefully you can be the connection for the people that are helping them. Like, hey, my husband doesn't believe me, or hey, they're having trouble, like whatever. They believe me, but they don't know what to do. So
Yeah.
yeah, that would be a nice support for them. And then me, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, man, eat right and get chelation and do saunas. So I tell everybody, and a lot of people don't believe me. They're like, food's not gonna do that, and I'm like, fine. I've reversed two things now, basically, and that's all I do. I don't take supplements. I do natural stuff: saunas, stress relief, nutrient dense food, and chelation. That's it.
And even
And
for us, when you were able to cook, when we were eating like that, we don't eat like that typically now.
yeah,
But when we were, or when we do, just whole foods, we feel so much better. Inflammation's gone. It's just like it's reality.
it's so utterly simple yet so complicated at the same time. It's like eat real food, but it's like, well, there's no such thing anymore. Almost
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
everything's got something else in it. It's crazy. Yep.
So
That's all you got.
that's it.
All right,
That's everything.
70 minutes. Not bad. Oh well.
At least
What do
we
you throw
gave
on
the
YouTube?
update in the beginning.
Yeah, right. Just like the last one.
Yeah.
But we're gonna throw the GoFundMe on there one more time, because I'm just swimming in debt, and this job's gonna get me to where I need to be. And then my old job, I make really good money, so that's the goal, to get back there. But I'm just swimming in debt. Like, this isn't for treatment anymore. I mean, it's gonna go towards treatment, but whoever donates now, it's just I'm swimming in debt. I'm gonna make it, even if I got $0. I'm gonna be fine. But I appreciate it. I really do. I hate asking, but at this point, it's like, whatever, man. Like, you almost died. That's what people are for, and hopefully, I can help people out in the future.
And
And
we're so fortunate to have all of those donations. I mean, it was like
oh
such a support that we didn't know we needed. Like just emotional support too,
yeah,
to see that people were willing to give their hard-earned money,
yep.
to help us. It
And I
was
make fun of a lot of people, so I was like, oh man, all those wise cracks my whole life, making fun of people. That's because that's how I show I care. I make fun of people. I make jokes, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if they're not going to donate because I'm as an idiot. And I'm like, oh, hey, they donated. Now I can make fun
You're a
of them
funny
again.
guy.
But very lucky. Yes, it's awesome seeing it. Still is.
I was like crying. First donation that started coming
Yeah,
in, like,
yeah.
people are supporting us.
Couldn't have done it without the GoFundMe, which is sad. It's
Yeah,
a happy
yeah,
thing, but it's also sad that uh, the government didn't help me like I needed. That when I pay into, and I had to rely on my friends and family, which is great, but sad.
yeah. All right. I'll send you the link.
Okay.
I don't know how to end it.
Yeah. I think just X out, maybe.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Cool.
bye.
Bye.